G'day, I'm Rohan Connolly.
I'm Mark Fine.
We are here to dissect an intriguing round 6 of AFL football. How are you, Finey?
I've enjoyed watching some great games. Good teams are good. Confirmed this round.
Well, I'm wondering if we're starting to get some of the separation factor between the wheat and the chaff. Not looking good for the chaff.
What we know is that Richmond's methodology is almost foolproof at the MCG, which makes them clear favourites. 12
on the trot at the G for them.
We know that West Coast are maybe unsurprisingly having an on year. They tend to have on and off years, but they look on.
Surprise me.
And we know that Sydney are made of pretty stern stuff. Collingwood lose no fans, and Port Adelaide regain some respect after a disappointing couple of weeks.
I noticed you didn't mention Essendon in any of that.
I'm leaving the Essendon talk to you because they are so far off it at the moment, but you know that only too well.
Yes, it's been a rather rapid demise, it's fair to say, in game terms since the last few rounds last year. We will get onto that in detail right now as we do the wraparound. Okay, 3 feature games. We'll spend a bit more time on them. We won't ignore the rest. I wanted to start, Finey, with what I thought was probably the result of the round. Not necessarily a game of the round, although it was a great game to watch too. Sydney's win down at GMHBA Stadium. Swans' 3rd win in a row at the Cattery. Phenomenal, and a phenomenal last quarter because I'll put my hand up. I thought they were gone. 22 points down. It didn't seem capable of finding something, and did they find something? 7-goal last quarter.
This is not the first time in Lance Franklin's career, and this is counterintuitive, that this brilliant match-winning footballer's absence, in fact, is not a negative for the team he plays for. Hawthorn certainly had periods, including the period after he went to Sydney, where they flourished. Sydney, obviously, did not have a beacon up forward to go to. It made their selections heading into 50 varied and probably lifted their eyes more going into 50. There was some high ball that was well scouted by the likes of Papley in the first game of Ronk, but they also hit up different players, and if they can integrate that intelligent football into taking advantage of Buddy's brilliance, then they are going to be, again, a force to be reckoned with.
Well, they started, I took some notes, they started with Parker, Rowan and Heaney effectively as their tall forwards. And it really threw the cats out. They were great in that first quarter. Probably could have been further in front than they were, 4-6, they wasted a couple of chances. But it did seem to throw the cats off guard a bit, didn't it? They're missing their defensive tools, but it probably didn't hurt them in the sense that the matchups wouldn't have suited them anyway.
No, Henderson and Taylor were not required for that forward line. What was required was busyness at the drop of the ball, and I think Geelong were not caught out in that regards. The fact is that there were just too many inside 50s. They got bombarded, especially in the second half of the first quarter, but this matter was addressed. It seemed to all come on the back of Callum Sinclair utterly dominating Reece Stanley.
Yeah.
Reece Stanley got a foothold in the second quarter, and by half-time Geelong were in front.
Yeah. Sinclair, he's really... I reckon there's a bit of a view out there that he was a little bit softish. I reckon he's proven terrifically resilient this year.
He's a goal kicker. It all started last year against Sydney at the SCG when he came in, I think, for the late withdrawal of Tippett, and...
You said against Sydney.
Against St Kilda, sorry, at the SCG. And he kicked 5 goals that night, playing up forward, but he just marked well, and he's marked well ever since. He rucks well.
Yeah.
No, he's very good.
Is he the best goal kicker of the ruckman going around at the moment?
Look, it appears so.
Yeah, I reckon he is.
There's mythologies about some ruckman's ability to kick goals, but like Matthew Cruiser was often touted as a potential forward, but that never... came to fruition.
One thing I love about the Swans is whenever they put a young bloke in the side, hardly ever does he look out of place. And I thought Ronke was great.
Except they called him Ronk.
Yeah, was it Ronke or Ronk?
It looks like Ronke.
Well, that means we should call Dane Rampy Ramp. Anyway,
it's all up to the family. But
he was
it wasn't shonky or wonky.
He was good. Ollie Florent continues to flourish.
Oh, he's a beautiful kick too, isn't he?
Yeah. And
Hayward.
That was the other one that escaped me. But every time they know how to pick them, they know how to develop them, they know how to play them at the right time, and they always, or 9 times out of 10, look comfortable. But that last quarter, we'll talk about Josh Kennedy in some detail later. But that was one of the great individual last quarters from him, I thought, to help get them over the line. And then Robbie Fox, he bobbed up and kicked 2 goals in the last quarter. There's another one. He's a bit older, of course.
Yep.
But they're going great guns. And, you know, they are my... I did a match report on this game, and back in the 80s, Peter McKenna used to love the phrase, you can't write Hawthorn off. Well, Sydney are this decade's or this millennium's version of Hawthorn. It doesn't matter what the situation, whether it's in the course of a season, they were 0-6 last year, won, 15 of their last 18, down 22 points, 3/4 time at Geelong, get up a win, without Franklin, without Hanbury. You cannot write them off, ever.
They're heading towards their 15th final in 16 years.
It's amazing.
Look, just quickly on Geelong, Dangerfield was used as a forward for the first part of the game. But Sydney were on top, so he went to the midfield. But his influence was quelled.
Yeah, it was.
I thought Murdoch, who's been a bit of a disappointment at times, I thought he played well.
Yeah.
They're young players. There's some talent there. They've got others that don't seem... Radagula's very good. Henry looked out of depth. So there are... Cunico maybe a little out of his depth.
Yeah, I'm not sold on him. Here's their casualty list at the moment. Ablett, Cockatoo, Cam Guthrie, Henderson, McCarthy, Menzel, Parfitt, Scott, Selwood, Taylor. It's pretty comprehensive. Any side's going to struggle losing that many.
Taylor's coming to the end of his career.
Yeah, we've had this discussion.
I'm saying, but some of these players, Ablett, they knew was going to be an injury worry.
Yeah.
Etc. etc. There is an element amongst that of, are we surprised?
No, well,
amongst some of them.
Yeah, I had him 7th on my ladder, so jury's out. Okay.
And just quickly on Hayward.
Yeah.
How good of a footballer is he?
So you've always got to just quickly. Yeah, go on.
Okay, but
I
this
just
one's
made
a good
it slower.
one. That's right. He's a brilliant talent, and he's never killed his mother or been up his legless sister. The club. He was Hayward.
Yeah. Okay. I think that joke needs explaining for our younger audience. Let's move on to game 2 on Sunday, and it was a big test for 2 clubs coming off 2 really disappointing losses, or in one club's case, 2 really disappointing losses. And one club passed this test reasonably confidently, I think, and the other club flunked it big time, and the club that passed was Melbourne, and they ended up smashing Essendon, frankly, in a game that was almost a carbon copy of the game between these 2 teams last year. Woeful first half, Finey. Skills just not visible at all. Essendon leading narrowly. Demons come out in the 3rd quarter and blow them to the Scheisenhausen with 7-1. Strolling from a centre square, virtually unimpeded at times. Dynamic looking forward set up with the likes of Fritsch, very prominent. Hannon, who I really like as a player, prominent. This
Melksham.
Got one back against his old side, as did Michael Hibberd. This all happened with Jesse Hogan off the ground injured. So they've got forward options, and this is one of the reasons I like them pre-season and put them 4th on my ladder. They're not all the way back yet. Their midfield, still a bit of work to do there, but Max Gawn turned it on today. He absolutely destroyed Matthew Leuenberger.
This is not the first time Max Gawn has gripped a game and just wrenched it from opposition hands. And I really believe he just won them the game today. He famously first did it in a famous win of Melbourne had
down at Geelong
Skilled Stadium at the time. He did it in an important game in 2017, round 1 against St Kilda.
Yeah.
St Kilda were 5 goals up early in that game.
Etihad also.
At Etihad. Melbourne hadn't beaten St Kilda for a long time.
Correct.
Etihad was a curse.
Yep.
These were the 2 up-and-coming teams.
Yep.
And he just ripped the heart out of the game.
Yep.
And he did it again today. He just destroyed it.
To a more experienced ruckman in terms of years, anyway, in Matthew Leuenberger. And I don't know why. I've got a theory that the centre bounce clearances seem to be more important at Etihad than other grounds.
They are, because you are a good clearance. You seem to be stepping into a scoring opportunity.
With one possession.
From either a pass or that possession.
Well, here's the tail of the tape there. Centre bounce clearances 16-4 to Melbourne. So they're part of the way back, the Demons, and it was a good restoration of faith, I think. We know that when they're up and running and confident, they can play some seriously good footy.
Lever was very good.
Yeah, he was.
He's coming to the party.
Salem, I think, is having a pretty good season. And good to see Tom McDonald back too, and he played his part, I thought. I thought he was... All right, I'm going to do a bit of a hatchet job on the Bombers.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, they've gone backwards. They have gone backwards. They recruited Stringer, Sard and Smith. Smith, right now, if he's not leading the best and fairest, is probably coming second. He's been great. Stringer the last 2 weeks has had has had a crack. Sard, a bit iffy today, made some errors, but I think he's had a crack. So basically, I think you can't help but point the finger at the established so-called leaders of this club. Dyson Heppel, David Zaharakis, disappointing.
Well, he had a lot of the balls, Zaharakis, but he kicked around the body
no
a lot
impact.
today.
No impact. I think Anthony Tipungwuti has been struggling. I thought he's better today.
Look, Hurley's been all right.
Yeah, no, I thought Hurley cost some stick. His performance declined as Essendon's fortunes declined. Hooker didn't offer much. He's struggling by his standards. So Darcy Parish,
unsided almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't say unsided, but he's started to go backwards.
McGrath was okay today.
He's not where he was last year. This is the worry, Finey. You know what? I know we've got to wind up on this game. How's this for a stat? How's this for a stat? Essendon, on their list, right, have 8 blokes who at one point were top 10 draft selections. Does that surprise you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll tell you who they are. McGrath, Parish, Joe Danaher, Heppel, Hurley, Myers, Stringer, Goddard. Okay, so Goddard's coming towards the end. Myers...
You didn't get Stringer as a top draft pick.
Though. No, but that's what he was.
That's a happenstance.
But still, you know, this is a side drastically underperforming to the capabilities of that list. I think there's some issues with the sort of footy they're trying to play. They started the season trying to play quick footy. Worsfold said after the Freo game, we're trying to play too quickly. They then overcorrected, and since then, with the exception of the Port game, they have stunk it up. For the second game in 4 days on Sunday, they chipped it around the half-back line, inevitably turned it over. Melbourne must have got half a dozen goals from defensive 50 turnovers. It was crap, isn't it? It was crap, and you're in a hell of a hole.
How many players in that team have from the start of the year met or exceeded expectations? Devon Smith, we've got.
He's met them.
I reckon Hooker's met them.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, but they moved him back. I think he's done, you know. I like him back.
Hurley. Hurley and Smith to me would Cornello the BNF right now, and I can't even think of who'd be third, but they'd be absolutely miles off the pace. Really, really disappointing Bombers, and a tough month coming up.
How did Laverty look to you?
Oh, he was okay. Yeah, he showed some signs.
Yeah,
but,
I like Laverty.
He's not going to make or break that side. No. Yeah. All right. Enough on that game. Let's move on. I could talk about it for another hour, but I've got steam coming out my ears. Okay, this was an important game too in terms of how good are Collingwood. Pies and Richmond at the MCG today.
And a great game.
Yeah, big crowd. 2 willing sides. Heaps of pressure. It was a step up from that Essendon Melbourne game. But the Tigers, you know, they did it again. They sort of put the squeeze on for a while and then they just went bang. It's like a cat playing with a mouse almost. 8 goals 3 in the last quarter to the Pies, 3 goals 1. Ended up winning the game by 43 points. How'd you see it?
It is now Richmond's modus operandi, and we shouldn't be surprised by it because they did it 3 times in the finals last year. Look, their finals campaign last year is underrated for its perfection in execution. Apply enormous amount of pressure into the third quarter of a game of football. If the opposition can meet that pressure, and there doesn't need to be much scoring from the Tigers as long as it matches what the opposition provide as well. So the scoreboard doesn't need to show domination, but apply pressure, make it hard to move the ball around the MCG, make every contest willing. And most teams in that situation would think we're in for the fight. What they are incapable of is then matching Richmond's gear up into scoring mode. And it normally comes with Dustin Martin inserting himself into the game and playing schoolyard football where he grabs the ball and either scores himself or punishingly kicks it into the forward line for a score from somebody else. His teammates know it is about to happen. The fast forwards that had been applying so much pressure for 2.5 quarters should never be underestimated for their ability to hit the scoreboard. And they go from frenetic chasers to dangerous forward options.
Well, I think
it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and I think there's has there been enough differentiation made between the types, the terriers that are Butler and Castagna, and the bigger frame players are like Caddy, Graham, Townsend? Because I think there is an important distinction. Caddy can actually offer them almost the profile of a key forward target.
He's vital for them.
Yeah.
He's a forward.
Yeah, and he marks.
Yeah, and after all that gruelling one-on-one desperate play, isn't it nice to have a solid body that can take a grab and kick a goal?
I wonder, I wonder how Gold Coast and Geelong feel about how Caddy's going now, because they would have been aware that he could do this. Why didn't he do it for them?
Because they wanted him as a midfield extractor. In the case of Geelong, he never got his hands on the ball because Selwood and then Dangerfield was there. Once Dangerfield arrived, Caddy had 1 3-vote game for Geelong.
Yeah.
It was against Collingwood when Selwood and Dangerfield weren't playing.
We kicked it. He played a pretty big game for them. Was it in the 2013 preliminary final that they lost to Hawthorn? He played some good games for them on big occasions.
But they use him as a midfielder,
Yeah.
and his tank doesn't match his.
Yeah. No,
his tank doesn't match up to that. So
he's in the perfect role now.
Yeah,
there's no
perfect.
doubt.
Perfect.
So I mean, yeah. Look, they are. There's a reason I said I reckon they are. Now there's a definite gap between them and the rest of the competition. I think they're so reliable now.
Collingwood were not bad.
Okay, so where does this leave the Pies?
It leaves them in good stead. They had a couple of players injured. Another player, Flynn. What's his name? Flynn Anderson or Flynn?
I've just had a blank.
He was number 31.
Yeah.
I think it was. He was good. He was quite calm.
Huckleberry?
He was calm in the crisis, but he was good.
Appleby.
Flynn Appleby. You're right.
He does sound like a Mark Twain character, doesn't he?
Flynn Appleseed. Stevenson's.
He would have been Huck and Tom's nemesis.
Stevenson kicked a beautiful long set shot goal in the last quarter. He's no flash in the pan. He's sustainable. Degoe. There's plenty to like about a developing
Phillips,
Collingwood
did you mention
team.
Phillips?
You know what? He had an admirable game. He was blitzing them till 3/4 time. But he's just not reliable in his disposal.
Was a few for the
I think
Pies.
Treloar had 40 odd. Again, not all his kicks perfect, but kicked one of the nicest goals you'll ever see.
I just feel like with the Pies, they've taken I was going to say taken the foot off the handbrake, but they've taken the handbrake off and they're back to playing that faster footy, which I thought made them look dangerous 3 years ago. Isn't it funny? It'd be good to talk to someone like Bucks honestly about how this happens, because sometimes it's almost like coaches overcoach. And they sort of inhibit the instinct of the players too much. They do. Well, I reckon that happened a bit with the Pies.
No surprise your car does not have a single undented panel if you release your handbrake with your feet.
Yeah. I thought you were talking specifically. I've actually got a new car and it's in pretty good nick.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
No grass growing up?
No grass growing out of the boot anymore. I'm looking after it. It's a 2013 Commodore, of course.
Yes,
but it's for me. It's a luxury car. I'm not big on car maintenance. All right, there are our three feature games. Yeah, here we go. Just quickly.
Did your parents drive a Trabant?
Well, in fact, my father never drove, and my mum didn't get her licence until she was in her mid-30s. So we didn't have a car until I was about 13. And her first car was a Morris Minor, I think.
The party The party didn't allow a car back
Oh,
then.
they weren't in the Communist Party then. They were ALP members then, before they defected to the Greens. Anyway, we'll do a political version of this show one day. Let's move on. Friday night. Yeah, Friday night. Friday night was a pretty ordinary game, let's be honest. We can wrap it up pretty quickly. The Dogs sort of got a bit of form and confidence back, and the Blues, you know, sort of hung in there and weren't blown away, but there was never going to be any other result, really, was there? Did you think I suspect you don't think the Blues were a chance.
No, they weren't. They weren't. The Bulldogs, look, they're not the Bulldogs up on the premiership, but they were energetic, and Lipinski, 3 times, I turned around and said, who kicked that? It was Lipinski every time.
Is he a character in Catch-22 or something, Game of Pile?
But he was okay.
Yeah, well, they're starting to get...
I like Tim English, and Bontempelli played his best game for a while.
Well, yeah, and I think not just Bontempelli, but McRae, I think, has been pretty solid for him. Yeah. Hunter was pretty good, McLean pretty good. Suckling was reasonable, I think, off half-back. So they're starting to get those contributions more evenly spread again, aren't they, rather than just relying on the Bont.
Yeah, and so people look at Carlton and say, no Cruiser, no Murphy, no Doherty, and I say... Absolutely miss Doherty, a fine footballer.
Yeah.
Murphy and Cruiser have not been able to lift them out of the bottom 2. I don't see why them playing makes much of a difference in the dynamic.
What about Paddy Cripps? Word on him, because he was fantastic. He was the best player on the ground, I thought.
He is heading into Robbie Flower territory.
He's a great player in a crap side. Well, pity there's not state footy around anymore. He could be dominating.
And it is a
Victoria.
pity. It is a pity because exactly for the Patrick Cripps in this world that you'd love to see play with other champions for WA. But you know he's West Australian.
Yeah. But you forget how young he is too. You know,
he's a ripper.
He's a ripper. All right, let's move on to Etihad Stadium Saturday afternoon. And after a couple of pretty shoddy weeks, Port did pretty well in this game. I think really
it was a really good game.
Seized the initiative early. North were always going to sort of throw the kitchen sink at them, but I thought the power resisted it pretty well. We got some glimpses of what I like about the power, their versatility, the spread of goal kickers, the mobility of even their big men, you know, Westhoff, Dixon. I thought it was pretty even performance by them and one which sort of put them back on track.
Well, they've got 2 champs in the team. The problem, one of them ended the game barely able to walk down the race.
Wingard.
Yeah. It was weird. He sort of went off feeling for something. You couldn't even tell
it
was his hammy.
It looked like cramp, didn't it?
Yeah, because he played on. It happened, and then he had a shot at goal.
Yeah.
And then he went off and he was sort of jogging up and down the sidelines, and then he put ice on it, and then he couldn't walk by the end of the game. So I don't know whether it was a precautionary limp or a very bad limp. But I'll say this, that Robbie Gray's a star. Hartlett's a loss for them. You know, he is. And Ryder's a loss.
Well, Ryder will be back, I think.
Yeah, of course, he will be back.
Not next week.
North threw everything at them. Interesting observations were Brown got thrashed and he kicked some goals late.
Yeah, he kicked 2 late.
Yeah, but he was just absolutely pantsed by Jonas.
It's a good player.
And Majak Dor, he was the most influential player on the ground. Tackling, marking. He was mighty, actually, and gave North a bit of a sniff.
Yeah, he's found his niche. I think we can definitely say he's found his niche.
Really good.
So, I mean, look, they lost comfortably, but North are definitely ahead of where most people thought they'd be, I reckon.
Gee, they missed Higgins. Just a bit of silk in the middle.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. The Twilight Saturday game, GWS, as expected, accounting for Brisbane. Probably... it was a bit of a slog fest, wasn't it?
I'm waiting for it.
Won by 34 points.
I'm waiting for my certificate of commendation from the AFL as one of the few people who watched it in full live.
Yeah,
and enjoyed it.
I was going to say, it didn't have a lot to recommend. What did you enjoy?
No, it did. It had a really interesting player called Oscar McInerney, whose journey into football has been long.
Yeah.
He's playing for Brisbane, tall, and ended up sort of shin splints. Couldn't walk, but took some nice marks and did well. And then from the GWS perspective, a small crowd, I wonder what they claim the crowd was.
10,046.
Not true. Always just got to 5 figures. That has got hairs all over it. 10,046, they say.
That's what they say.
No, it's not true.
All right, so where are we? Where are the
No, wait,
Giants?
because they had a really interesting player who brought 200 people to the ground.
Who was that?
Their first product out of the academy.
Yeah.
The first kid from the west of Sydney to play for GWS. So a bit of a watershed moment. A kid called Shipley.
Yeah.
Now, he'd only ever played footy for 3 years. He was a soccer player. And he looked like a really talented footballer who didn't quite get football, but did a lot of good things.
Brisbane, very quickly.
Brisbane keep whacking away. They've got no forward line. I'm going to be a broken record, but Hipwood needs to touch the ball more than 5 times a game. I've been saying it for 2.5 years.
Stop moving our props.
No, it's okay. Well, that's, look, you see that, Sharon?
Yeah.
Hipwood? Maybe he should be here, because he won't go near touching it.
He is your whipping boy.
Well,
Eric
he doesn't
Hipwood.
get the ball enough.
Yeah,
but he kicked a great goal.
He looks good.
He kicked a buddy-like goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Well, good highlight.
And as for GWS, De Boer was brilliant.
Yeah, no, he's a really important player for them now. I don't reckon anyone would have been predicting that 12 months ago.
Speaking of De Boer, let's move to Hawthorn St Kilda.
Well, you know what? There are some games you look at and you think, I reckon this will be a yawn. I just had a feeling this would be.
De Boer.
But as much about the being played on a Saturday night in Launceston.
Yeah, I didn't mind I like night football in Tasmania because you know what? It was a perfect night.
Else to do?
No, it was a perfect night. There was no wind, but you knew it was cold.
Yeah, so hence dewy and
I was
breezy.
saying, so of course St Kilda players, any excuse to be it's yucky for them. It's like Seaford, and it's like winning games. It's all just a bit too hard for them. It's not impossible, but it's just a bit too hard for them.
I got to ask, what was your reaction
when
Tim Membry missed from the goals?
This was where Josh Bruce
It was worse than Josh Bruce, I reckon.
Because when Josh Bruce did it, St Kilda was 70 points up, so it didn't matter that much. My immediate reaction was, Jason Dunstall's never going to shut up about this because he tried to dribble it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think Membry did it out of respect for Josh.
But you know what? Like, I've got to say this. St Kilda's effort in the last 2 weeks has been much improved, but it must be frustrating for people that try to overcomplicate footy. But if you can't convert chances, you're not going to win games. And they were,
St Kilda are 18th in the competition for accuracy.
And you know what? They're also 18th for goals per inside 50.
They're 18th for making their fans happy.
Well, you know what the percentage is? 17%. Yeah. And then they come out and kick, what was it? 7-12. So, they worked really hard to get back into that game, miss, and there was about 3 times in a row, I think they kicked 2 points in a row. Hawthorn take out the other end, Bruce goals or Smith goals.
This was the thing. At the end of the third quarter, Sinclair has a shot at goal to put St Kilda level.
Yeah.
He misses. The ball goes down the other end, and Hawthorn kick a competent, a really nice goal, well-constructed goal.
Yeah.
And if you could say that you saw the collective air go out of St Kilda's balloons, then you would be accurate. You could almost hear the psst.
All right, let's move on. Adelaide and Gold Coast, and this was a fairly, formulaic sort of win for the Crows. Did what they had to do. Gold Coast, no, didn't really hang around with them, did they? Adelaide was
Gold Coast,
7 goals up by half time.
Poor old Gold Coast. So wouldn't they love to have just had some games at home to get into the season?
Massively tough ask. 10
2
weeks
games
on
in
the
Perth,
road.
a game in Adelaide. I mean, it's impossible.
Well, the upside is it gets easier for them, but the thing is how much air will have gone out of their balloons by the time they get to play at home. So, Adelaide did what they had to do. I thought they were reasonably businesslike and efficient about it. Issues with Tex Walker, of course, so that might be a problem. But, Wayne Miller, pretty impressive for them.
Yeah, that says a bit about how the game was played maybe at arm's length.
Oh, that's a backhander.
Not a backhander. It's how Wayne Miller is a talented footballer who gets caught in the crushes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, okay. So that's enough on that one?
Yeah, except that David Swallow's having a very good season.
Yeah, he was good.
Yep.
All right, final game of the round. And look, apologies to West Coast and Freo fans about this because it was a cracker of a game, but it was hard to sort of rank them in order of importance. Anyway, a great WA derby, one of the better ones in recent years, I think, ended up with an 8-point win to West Coast. And The Dockers were coming hard all day, really. They, in fact, led early, but West Coast sort of seized the initiative before half-time and just held them at bay, I think, in a pretty tough second half. But, both these teams have surprised us a bit this year, haven't they? And I don't think Freo emerge with any less credibility, perhaps a bit more, for taking it right up to the Eagles.
So people are asking how West Coast been able to find something that clearly wasn't there last year. And you can look at some young players that have come into the team and injected a bit of enthusiasm, but it really has been the resurrection of players that look shot.
I got one for you, Jack Redden.
A great example. I mean, it was not cast off from Brisbane, but Brisbane weren't desperate to keep him.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely the 22nd man pick every time he played last year.
Yeah.
Sheed.
Oh, he's a good player. I rate him.
Has become a leading midfielder, maybe with the absence of Pritis.
Yeah.
Darling, he had his critics. But he's going well. Lacroix looked almost done and dusted.
Which is this all what you're saying, which is spot on. This is what happened with him in 2015. You had like a dozen blokes having career best seasons or renaissances. Can you have a plural of renaissance? Renaissances.
Renaissance as. And I put it down to something. What do you put it down to? I'm almost going to put it down to Nat Nui.
Yeah.
Not that he has been the superpower that he can be.
Yeah.
But there's a rallying point for them.
Quick word on Freo, because if I mark
Really
West Coast
good.
down, I had Freo down the where of the ladder.
Good. They can turn the tap on now and score.
Well, exactly. And is it like, has Ross finally said, you know what, my brand doesn't work, I'm going to loosen up a bit?
He's been a coach for his times. There's times under Ross Lyons, St Kilda had plenty of high-scoring games and seasons.
They had one high-scoring season.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
09.
And that was how he chose to play it.
But that was off the back of a stingy defence. I think they're doing it a bit differently now.
The great news for Fremantle is that there are new players there that are really sustainable. I like Sarah.
He looks good. Brayshaw.
Yeah, Ryan.
And a few that have been there a while, like Blakely's pretty good for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure about his kicking. Lockie Neal and Blakely, for them to be a great team, they'll be superseded. Maybe not. Look, I shouldn't say superseded, but they will not be getting 70 touches between them.
No.
There'll be other uses for them. But well done. And what a great way to christen the new stadium with two up and about WA teams playing a really good derby.
Yeah. Derby here, derby there, I think, is how it goes.
Apparently it changes just past Seduna in South Australia. You can see it change. Derby.
All right, we're going to move on because we're talking drivel. That's wrap around for this week. Let's keep it going. Righty out, Finey, you know how this segment works. Hot or not, 3 likes or dislikes from the round. I'm going to kick us off with a hot, and his name is Isaac Smith. Now, I think, officially a veteran for the Hawks. What a fantastic player he's been for them. He's quick, gets plenty of the ball, thumps the ball with that booming left foot, and in that game in Launceston on Saturday night, his ball use, just his capacity to kick a goal at the big moments, was the difference. The one thing I think the Hawks have been trying to get out of him a bit more over the years has been goal scoring, and he has responded to that challenge. He kicked 4 against the Saints. It gives him 10 out of 6 games. So he's doubled his goal average. I checked the numbers earlier. He was averaging about 0.8 goals per game. This year, 1.6, more than 1.6. So that's the final piece in the Isaac Smith jigsaw puzzle. He is a fantastic player for them.
Yeah, this time last year he was struggling a bit.
Yeah.
And he pulled it together towards the end of the season. Look, once Bradley Hill left, and then of course Rioli's injured, Puopolo, Burgoyne just coming back, their ability to break the lines and kick goals becomes limited. He was fantastic. And your hot will lead on to my first not.
What is it?
Alan Richardson. Surely he knew that the avenues to goal were limited for the Hawks. I mean, Breust, Gunston and Smith. And it seemed as though Smith, of all of them, had the least work put into him, because I would have thought that that's where you started your homework. And he was careering around Launceston on Saturday night, able to, not only impact on the scoreboard, but thump the ball forward. Rarely seemed to have anybody close to him. I would have thought maybe Blake Acres would be a good run with somebody. There was a little homework put into Bruce. He had 5 shots of goal in the first quarter, should have ended the game. And I felt that St Kilda, again, endeavour was commendable, but this time the forward planning and the pre-planning, terrible. And I have to put that down to the coach.
What sort of pressure is he under, just quickly? I mean, he's contracted up to the end of 2020, but if they continue to get smashed, are we going to see the natives getting a bit restless, do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
There's only so much bonhomie, goodwill that you can give to a coach, and I think he and Brendan Bolton will understand for different reasons. From St Kilda's perspective, because they were better 2 years ago than they are now, with a list that should have been developing into now.
Yeah.
And Carlton, because of the #1 draft picks that have come their way. Both groups of supporters will run out of patience, I think, and Richardson will face some scrutiny.
Strong words. Okay, I'm going with a not now as well to follow your not, and I don't enjoy doing this, but my not is Dyson Heppell. He is struggling. He's struggling as a footballer, and he's struggling as a captain, I'm afraid. And again, against the Demons, look, he's never been quick, but his ball winning ability and his use has been good. Off half-back or whether on a wing or in the centre square. But I just see him starting to go backwards, like he looks slower than ever. He's not getting as much of the ball. I think 18 disposals today. But most importantly, I'm not seeing him marshalling the troops. And Melbourne were always going to make a play against Essendon coming out after half-time. They kicked 1 straight away. They kicked 3 in the first 6 or 7. They kicked 4 goals in 10 minutes. I didn't see any marshalling of the troops out there on the field to stem the flow. I think he's a easygoing sort of bloke, but I'm not sure that he has that strength of character to really rein other guys in and read them the right act in terms of their defensive work, particularly with that midfield group. And they paid the price for it today, so he's struggling.
A couple of things. Last year, Essendon were blown away by Melbourne in the third quarter.
It was a very similar game.
Correct. So you would have thought that the leaders on field would have said, hang on, no way, line in sand, we are not putting up with this.
Yep.
And I know this sounds a little bit superficial and people will go, you've got to be joking, but I was always told when I played cricket or golf, if you can't be a good cricketer or a golfer, at least look like one. And I don't think Travis Johnson's career particularly went on an upward curve when he looked like a homeless man in a football jumper, and I just don't think it's becoming to have the scraggly beard running around as the captain and leading midfielder. Go back to the streamlined look. The final word on Dyson is that he is a cracking bloke. He does wonderful work with RecLink, and he did that long before anybody even knew he was a footballer of note, because he did it from day one, and he'll do it after he finishes playing football. I wish him all the best in becoming the champion that we think he can be.
All right, your turn.
A hot.
Yeah.
Now, today we celebrate something that's very rare in Australian rules football, and that's the 4th generation of a family playing league football. Charlie Spargo made his debut today.
It was very good.
And he did so with some panache. In fact, he's a couple of electric goals got Melbourne sort of out of the black and out of the red and into the black, pardon the colour pun. But Bob Spargo played with the Bulldogs back in the 40s and 50s. Ricky Spargo played with the Bulldogs in the 70s. I remember Ricky Spargo. Paul Spargo played with North Melbourne and the Bears. Paul made his debut in a final. Might be the last player to have done so. 1985 against Footscray.
In the first semi,
That's
would have
right.
been, yeah.
Yeah, North lost the game, but that was his first game. And now Charlie Spargo is a 4th generation, all with the same surname.
And Charlie's Paul's son, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a rare moment, and was undersized. They thought during the draft might have held him back, but he was pretty exciting today.
No, he looked good. He looked really nippy. I heard David Parkin actually talking about having 6 goals kicked on him by, it must have been Bob, Spargo.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, but yeah, maybe Bob.
yeah,
Yep.
turning the clock back there. But yeah, no, a likely prospect for the Demons. No, good call. All right, my last one's a hot, and it's a reversal of last week's not. Now, you may recall, or you may not recall, last week I gave a not to Josh Kennedy, a very rare not. Well, talk about answering that in style. He was absolutely fantastic in the last quarter for the Swans.
Yep.
He ended up with 33 disposals, which is more than he'd had for the last 2 games combined. But the last quarter particularly, at 13, he had 5, I think, centre clearances.
Oh, the clearances were key.
And he just, again, that is a sign of a truly great player and a leader as well. He said, we need a super effort here. I'm going to deliver it. And he delivered it. He won them the game. And I love seeing when guys respond like that. He is such a good player, and I still think he's undersold a bit. And he proved what a champion he is by just answering a couple of weeks of poor form with a great game that won the Swans their 3rd straight win of victory down at Geelong.
It reminds me of a story, I think, back in the times of English football when Wolves were in the top division. They had a player called Andy Gray, and they came up against another team that had an Andy Gray. And when their Andy Gray came on, the entire crowd started singing, "There's only one Andy Gray." Well, thank goodness there's not only one Josh Kennedy, because they're two of the very best players in the competition.
They are.
And let's not forget that soccer's Josh Kennedy got us into a World Cup
Correct.
final with a header.
Correct. It's a good name.
Yeah, Josh Kennedy's good.
It's like Paul Kelly. There's been a few handy Paul Kellys over the years.
And Tom Lynch, of course. They came head to head on the weekend.
Is there another Mark Fine?
Thank God, no.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure there is somewhere.
I'm pretty sure there's not another one of me. All right.
I'll finish with the hot.
Bring us home.
And it's a captain of a losing team on the weekend. And Dane Beams is probably not right physically.
I love him.
He was, and if you have a look at his game, I watched that game before, it was an interesting game, and maybe his last quarter and a half were not brilliant. Why? Because the game was it had spun away from Brisbane and their best efforts. But to keep them in the game, he was mighty. Now, I wish there was a combination mark and goal of the year. It's something that's never really been done, is there? A great mark.
Peter. Oh, no.
No, I'm saying you can win mark of the year, goal of the year,
Yeah,
but an actual award for the best mark then converted into a goal.
Yeah.
He took one of the bravest marks you've ever seen. It was low. It was certainly a mark. One of the commentators said, well, it wasn't a mark, but I'm glad they paid it.
Yeah.
It might have been Brenton Speed, but he was off pace that time because he did mark it.
Yeah.
He did it in the face of oncoming danger. And even though I don't think his body's right, he willed himself to go back from 55 metres out and kick a goal on a night when goals weren't coming all that easily for the Lions.
He's a ripper, Beamsy. He will be, I reckon, in time, one of the best captains of the AFL. Just a quick aside to that, was it Finlayson who he took the mark in front of and Finlayson clipped him?
Yeah.
Do you see Finlayson go down, put his hand down?
I don't think he did clip him. I think he what happened was Dane Beams hit his head hard onto the turf.
Well, the point I was going to make was Finlayson checked on his...
He really did,
and I thought that was great.
Yeah,
I thought that was really good, right in the middle of a game.
He really did.
Yeah. So hats off to you, young Finlayson.
And let me tell you, that boy Finlayson can kick the ball probably further than anybody in the comp.
There's our hot or nots. Time to move on, Finey. You know what's coming up next.
The Russian segment, Rantov.
Yeah, very good, very good. We're going to work ourselves into a lather. You get ready for it. Righty, I've worked myself up into a lather. How are you?
I can't say I'm lathered, but I'm looking forward to it.
Actually, I do that analogy a bit, don't I?
Yeah, very soapy.
Well, it's a legacy of the Cousins Imperial Lather ad, which everyone our vintage remembers. You know, of course, the magic words, Simon Tahiti.
It was Imperial Leather, wasn't it?
Isn't it leather?
No.
Why would it be leather? Soap's not made of leather.
No, but this segment's not made of soap analysis.
Roger, Wilco.
And out.
All right, now count me in. I'm not angry enough, but I'll get there. Come on.
Soapy Connolly.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
I'm pissed off about the grand final scheduling, Finey, and the AFL playing us for a bunch of saps. So the overwhelming majority of punters who want a 2:30 game are supposed to be grateful they've deigned to allow us the privilege again this year. But now we're doomed to play an annual will I change it this season game for our little victory. They're battering us into submission, Here's how it works. Gil McLachlan spends the next year following up every statement about the game with his now traditional, by the way, a night grand final is inevitable, and eventually we cave in just so he'll change the bloody broken record. We know all the arguments as to why the granny should remain a day game. It's already a guaranteed full house. It's already one of the highest rating sport broadcasts of the year. We know the players don't want it because without due, the conditions will be better for the most important game of the year. We also know the broadcasters don't give a toss what any of us think, and that the AFL really doesn't either, as long as we believe they might just occasionally give us a second thought. You know, in the same way you might have the odd flashback about that shocking date you went on when you were 18. That's what's going on here. The day grand final is going to get dumped like the faithful girl next door types in those teen movies, while the cheerleader night version with a little too much makeup and possibly surgically enhanced chest beckons suggestively. But we're the girl next door too, Gil. We've seen the way you look at her. We've noticed you've been avoiding our questions about the prom. We know what's coming, but we'll tell you this. When you do piss off to the prom with that skanky hoe, she gets too pissed and vomits in your convertible. Don't say we didn't tell you so. As you'd like to put it, it's inevitable.
So I just want to get this clear.
Yeah.
Am I the skanky hoe?
No. Well, you want a day grand final. Or no, are you what? You are the skanky hoe.
I don't want to.
Look at you cheap and nasty top.
I don't
spandex top. Cheap perfume.
Well, who are you, the girl with glasses that in the last scene takes off the glasses, flicks the hair back?
Correct.
And you're actually beautiful?
But that's not that's the whole point. That's not going to happen now. He's going to go off with a skanky hoe who'll get pissed and vomit in his convertible.
Forget the analogies. Are you actually...
And I'm not going to wish him well, like in most of those TV movies. They're going to sit there and going, ha, 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 karma.
But are you actually the pretty girl who's... No, look... I don't want the night grand final or a twilight grand final to tamper with important things like length of half time or, you know, just important elements.
Which it will.
If it does, then it can't be.
Well, it
will. Cannot be.
It will and it will be. And then you'll be me. You'll be the pretty girl with the glasses. And the intellect.
It's all about the fireworks, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know what it's about. It's about getting some crappy bloody international act like Coldplay.
Yeah,
it's the third week in a row I've got the Coldplay analogy happening. All right, enough. Fire up. 3, 2, 1. Rant.
I'm not stupid, Bruce. I'll turn off the football when I want to turn off the football. Not when you tell me it's safe to do so. What am I talking about? The transparent, the obvious, the now ingratiating commentary for the broadcaster that seems to demand that commentators pretend that a game is still alive when it's well and truly done and dusted. Take Friday night, Bulldogs versus Carlton. Carlton, facing 6 losses in a row, with the firepower of the Vanuatuan army, trailing by 4.5 goals with time on, ticking over in the last quarter. And then Bruce gets all guttural. If Kerno kicks this, it's alive! This is a huge goal in the context of the game. No, it's not, mate. The game's over. Their season was over a week ago. It's a huge goal in the context of you trying to pretend that the game's still alive. And of course, Bruce, you're not an island when it comes to this. It seems as though radio broadcasters, less so, but still a bit, and certainly television commentators, are desperate to make us believe the game's alive. What idiots are they catering to? And is it all for advertising dollars? Because what advertisers want to advertise their product to idiots who believe a game is still alive when there's 87 points the difference 15 minutes into the last quarter? What products are they peddling? The bottom line is, I turn off when I want to turn off. Not when you say it's safe to do so.
I agree. I think BT's joined Bruce in the talking the game up stakes. BT wants to have a bet with Lingy every week now. When someone's 10 goals down, they kick 2 in a row. Lingy, are you on? Are you on? Just quickly on Bruce. When did Bruce add the rhetorical A at the end of it? He didn't.
Yeah.
If you listen to the first 20 years of his commentary, he never did that. When did that happen? That's not something you sort of... Maybe you find that a bit sus.
Maybe when he went to Canada, eh?
There's something really weird about it.
I will say this.
Hurry up.
He was very fizzy on Friday night. Very excited.
Yeah. Well, he hadn't called for a few weeks.
Had he found the Cameroonians, did he?
Oh, no.
No, he didn't.
No, I mean, no, we're not pursuing that. All right. Yeah, it was a good rant. I liked it.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
I hope you liked it as well. That's it for this week. Thanks for your company. Of course, make sure you remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're not already, you will after hearing this, or we'll send the boys around, won't we? Thanks to MySport Live again for the use of their facilities. Thanks to Nell and Andrew for the sterling work that they do, bringing this to you every week. That's about it. Any final thoughts?
Well, I've got a bit of breaking news, an
What is it?
exclusive.
Yeah.
If Sydney are good enough to win a home final this year, they want to play it at Cardinia Park.
Yes, very understandable. They play that ground very, very well. All right, we're off. See you next week.